Hey friends, there's something new from our sponsor Text Control. Their new product, DS Server, provides document services out of the box for all platforms and languages. Whether you want to integrate document creation, editing, sharing, or collaboration into your web app, DS Server provides the back-end technology to integrate that professional document processing. For example, using DS Server, you could integrate an MS Word compatible document editor into pure JavaScript, Angular, or an ASP.NET Core application. You can create PDF documents using Web API calls or even request electronic signatures from end users. DS Server is also hosted on-premise in your infrastructure or with your cloud provider, such as Microsoft Azure. And you can test DS Server without downloading anything. Create your first DS Server application in minutes by requesting a trial token on their dedicated website at dsserver.io. That's dsserver.io. Hey friends, I'm Scott Hanselman. It's another episode of Pencil Minutes. Today I'm talking with Abel Wang. How are you, sir?
Hey, how's it going? Doing well.
So, everyone's had a rough year. Everyone's had a rough couple of years. The last 15 months has kind of sucked. But it's kind of sucked more for you. Talk to me about your last couple of years here.
So about 3 years ago, I got diagnosed with colorectal cancer, which was kind of a buzzkill. But it was kind of funny, too, because when I got diagnosed, I had zero doubt I was going to beat it, right? It was like no doubt in my mind. I was just like, yeah, give me the chemo, do whatever treatments there is. And we did that. So we did that for about a year and a half. And I was cancer-free. And so I thought I was home free. And I knew eventually cancer probably would come back, but I figured I had like a good 10, 15 years before I'd have to worry about that. So I just kept on living, right? I jumped back into work and I was doing all my stuff, having a great time. And that's when the pandemic hit. So I was scheduled to have like scans every 6 months or so. So right before the pandemic hit, I had all my scans, everything looked green, everything looked good. I was like, of course it looks good. And pandemic hit, we're all quarantined, right? And freaking out about COVID and all that. And sometime around December-ish time, no, a little bit before that, November timeframe, I started to realize that I was feeling horrible, right? My stomach was being weird and it was just a horrible, awful feeling. I was getting super tired really quickly. And I just chalked it up to some of the surgery that I had done, right? I had a reverse ostomy and all that good stuff. And so I was like, okay, I bet they just need to fix some stuff. It'll be fine. So I just kind of ignored it and kept on working. So one of the things that I do is I bury myself in my work life because work is easy and it's incredibly fun for me. And I know it's not majorly fun for most people or a lot of people, but I love it. I love what I do. So to me, it's a great escape, right? So I buried myself in my work and I just kept on plowing away until I guess this would be right around the March timeframe. I was just like, it got to a point where I couldn't even sustain like a full day of working. I couldn't even sustain like the couple of hours that I needed to put in to even look like I was working, right? So by then we were like, okay, we probably need to get somebody to take a look at this. And they did some new scans. And that's when I found out that my cancer came back within just like, this 9-month time frame. It came back and it spread everywhere. So we're talking my liver, my lungs, my lymph nodes, my bladder, pelvic area. It just exploded, right? Like a cancer bomb just went off in me. And to make matters worse, they were like, yeah, if you don't do anything, you have 2 months to live. And if we start doing intensive treatments, you have a 14% chance of living. I mean, of course, they said it in a much nicer way, right? Roundabout way. But I kind of boiled it down. And to me, I'm a numbers guy. I'm a math guy, right? So I'm like, okay, give me the real scoop. And I was like, oh, that's not very good. What do I do now? And that came out of the blue. It was extremely shocking for me. And by now I was feeling so horrible. I knew something was wrong because I couldn't even sustain like a couple hours of just sitting on the computer pretending I'm making a recording or something, right? So it got really, really bad. So my choice was to do nothing and die in 2 months and they'd make me really comfortable, or I could fight. And I've never been one to give up, and I still have a lot to live for. I have all sorts of stuff I still want to do. So I was like, all right, let's do it. Let's fight. How bad can it be? I did it once before. This should be easy, right? And I really shouldn't have thought that because it has not been easy at all. It's been pretty brutal, but things are looking good though, Scott. I think things are better now.
There's so many questions and so many ways to come at this. So let me, as I try to do on the show, is ask the questions that the audience is thinking, as well as the ones that I'm thinking. When they tell you stuff like this, is it like the movies where you're sitting across a big giant like wooden desk and they're like looking at a chart and they're like, you have 14%? Or is it an email or does it come in like Apple Health?
So it was supposed to be a face-to-face meeting, but with COVID and with how horrible I was feeling, my cancer clinic is in downtown Seattle. I'm kind of like on the outskirts, so it takes me a good 45 minutes to an hour just to get to my clinic. So I always put it off, and I try to do as much remote as I possibly can. And again, you have to remember, I 100% believed everything was fine. I just needed some more surgery to fix some stuff up, and I'd be fine. Right. So it was done over a Zoom meeting, or whatever software the doctor was using. The doctor was just like, I am so sorry. I don't want to do this over like telecommuting, but we have to do that. And it was kind of like a bomb going off, right? It was all of a sudden, I could see the doctor's mouth moving, but all I could think about was, you've got to be kidding me. How can this possibly be real? I've got so much more I need to do. Right. There's so much more time I need to spend with my family. This is impossible. And then, she just her mouth kept on moving. And eventually I started to hear her again. I was like, okay, I got to get a grasp on reality, and figured out what's going on. Yeah, it was pretty shocking. That was not a good day.
When I recently started on being on TikTok, and TikTok finds out things that you're interested in. And everyone's got something. Certainly not as mind-blowing and life-altering as what you've got, but I've got my diabetes, and I've got my frozen shoulder, and I can't use this arm, and I've got other stuff. So I found myself on disability TikTok, and it's various people, amputees and stuff. And this one woman yesterday has, she's one of the kind of like has one leg, and then you see her in cool like giraffe feet jumping and doing stuff, and you're like, wow, that's amazing, that's inspirational. And then she was sitting inside of her suitcase because she was packing, and she's tiny. So she was sitting in her suitcase with her foot, and she took her leg off and it was covered in sores. And she's like, I know I'm supposed to be inspirational, but this sucks. And she kind of went off on a rant. And then you saw her collect herself, and she's like, okay, like, I'm back to being inspirational now. There's no obligation for her or you or me in my tiny, tiny little diabetic way to be inspirational. But are you thinking about that, or are you selfishly thinking only about yourself?
I'm pretty selfish these days and just thinking about myself. I would like to be like if I take a step back, I would love to be inspirational. I would love to bring people hope and joy and all that good stuff. But a lot of it right now is I'm really stuck in my head, and I have very little control over my emotions. They're just kind of they spike all over the place. But I totally get it, right? So I'm naturally a pretty positive person, but in times of trauma, my mind can go into really, really dark places really, really quickly. And it kind of spikes all over the place. And I know on social media, I tried to present a very positive message out there. And I don't try to share the dark times, because the dark times get really bad, right? But part of my thinking is, if you really, really think about it, we all are going through something, right? And it's not like, oh, one person is worse, because in our mind, things can get really bad. It can be, like you said, it can be physically something's wrong with us, like your shoulder, or it can be like our health, or it can be our children's health, or maybe our mental health issues, or we're caring for aging parents, or whatever, right? We all have issues that make life really, really difficult. But one thing that I've always thought is life is just way too short, right? You have to do things that make you happy, and you can't wait. You can't wait until life isn't hard anymore to decide to be happy, because otherwise you'd be waiting a long time. So it's I try to find what's positive, and as long as my quality of life is at a certain point, at a certain bar, and I can still use my brain, ultimately that's what makes me happy. I'm going to try to live life as much as I can.
Yeah, the thing that you said there just resonated with me. The idea that you can't wait for life to not be hard. Like, I catch myself doing that. Like, you see me talking about mindfulness and deliberate practice and things like that, intentionality, but I'm still planning. I'm like, well, when I'm 55, and then no guarantees, right? Well, when I finally get my six pack and I get a personal trainer, that's not going to happen. Then I'll do this stuff. Then I'll. So yeah, it is really about now, and now can be a walk or a dinner with your kids or something like that.
Yeah, and there's never the right time, right? We always want to be like, oh, I'm going to wait till it's the right time to do X, Y, Z. Other stuff is happening right now. There's never the right time. I remember, maybe you're the one that told me. I don't know. But when I was looking for it, I was looking at looking for new roles at Microsoft, and I was talking about, oh, I'm trying to figure out the timing. And someone, it might have been you, might have been someone else. I talked to so many different people. Someone told me, dude, there's never a right time. There's never a good time. The good time is now. Just if this is what you want to do, just do it. Make it work. And I kind of apply that to my entire life as well, not just my life at Microsoft, which is there's never a good time. There's never a right time. So seize the moment. Of course, now I'm like really underneath a microscope, right? I don't know how long I have. I could have months. I could have years. I could have many, many years, right? It just kind of, it's all a roll of a dice right now for me. So I know at this moment, today, I feel really good, which means I can do a lot of things that I love. I can see the people I love. I can try to help whatever people I can help. I can use my brain and maybe do some stuff for Microsoft because, again, that makes me happy, as weird as that is. I don't expect everyone to glean as much joy from work as I do, but it makes me happy. So these are things that I do.
The percentage and the years thing I find so frustrating. You know what I mean? Like 14%, it's a number that you can focus on. You can say, yeah, I beat the odds. I beat the odds all the time. My whole life is beating the odds. I'll beat the odds. And it's not 3%. You can have that kind of an attitude. But then when you say like it's everywhere, do you feel like you're holding back like the I don't know, I forget the bad guys in the Lord of the Rings or whatever, like, the hordes that are trying to or are you change your diet? Do you do the cold granola thing, or do you go Western medicine, Eastern medicine, and granola stuff and just throw the kitchen sink at cancer?
I am doing the kitchen sink thing, right? Because I don't know what works. I don't know what doesn't. My family, both my brother and sister are surgeons, Johns Hopkins trained. One is Harvard Medical School trained, right? They're like super, super surgeons. And my parents are like super math science people, but they're also like super old in Chinese, right? So they are full believers of like all the Eastern medicine stuff. So my entire life I've been given, I don't know, weird concoctions from my witch doctor mother, right? She mixes stuff up. It just tastes like it's so foul.
Drink it, man.
She's like,
you gotta drink it.
Yeah, that's how you know it's working, right? When it tastes horrible. So I'm basically trying everything. So I flooded my body with chemo, and for the past 6 weeks or whatever.
And this is your second or third or fourth or fifth round of chemo, because you did chemo a couple of years ago as well, or we all remember.
Oh yes, and this time has been worse than any other times. Like they switched up the chemo, they did whatever. They're basically flooding my body, trying to kill it everywhere, right? So it was really intense. It was not a good time in any way, shape, or form. So as bad as people say chemo is, it's 1,000 times worse because you can't even describe how awful it feels, right? It's like someone trying to explain to someone, how does that pain in your shoulder feel? You're kind of like, well, it's sharp, it's whatever, but you can't really describe it, right?
Someone said that chemo is trying to kill every single thing except you.
Yeah. And they give you just not enough to kill you,
right,
to kill me, right? So, but I've responded well in the sense I've pushed my cancer back. So it was like everywhere there were spots, right? So I pushed it back, and so there are not like little pinprick spots. The most amount is on my liver, and that's still there on the left lobe, but it's not reproducing right now. It's just kind of staying like silent. We're like in a symbiotic relationship. So the hope is we can kind of keep it this way, right? If we can keep it this way, I can buy myself another couple months, another couple years. Who knows, right? Again, nobody knows. And will it come back at some point in time? Probably. But in the meantime, I've changed my diet completely. So now I'm eating very little meat, like a little bit of chicken, a little bit of fish, tons of vegetables and fruits, and, the granola, this, that. Basically everything you can possibly think of, I'm doing that. My mom is shipping me weird mushrooms from like all over the world. She's like, put this in soup, right? And all sorts of stuff. So whoever has any type of idea, no matter how outlandish, I'm like, I'll try it.
Yeah. so I'm having trouble processing a lot of this information, so I apologize. Usually on these shows, like I have done all this research and stuff, and other than doing a ton of research on colorectal cancer, and everyone should go and get their test, especially if they're anywhere in their 40s. They've lowered the age recently now, from 50 to mid 40s. Yep. Thinking about the balance of the thing that you have that's going to make your life miserable versus like old age and trying, like I have diabetics die of diabetes, or they die of old age or like a really cool like accident, like I get hit by an ice cream truck or something, and then the old, like death and old age kind of like go back and forth. So you could have like a Venom, like symbiote, and then die of old age like a regular person.
I absolutely can, and it's like when people are like, oh, well, 14%. And I'm like, who's to say, right? Because we're all, it's one thing to look at it from a math perspective, but at the end of the day, we're each individuals as well. There's no telling that, I'm in the 70-some percent, or am I in the 20-some percent? Am I in the 14%? It's impossible to tell, right? So the only way I can look at it, well, again, I fall through some dark cracks and dark times as well. But when I pull myself together, I have to look at it as, how do I feel right now? Because I have good days and bad. Right now, I feel really good. So I can't spend time worrying about what I'm going to feel tomorrow. I really have to live life to the fullest right now, this second. And I kind of feel that desperation right now, right? Because I don't know from day to day to day what's going to happen. Am I still going to be in this symbiotic relationship, or is the cancer going to be like, ha ha ha, we're back and we're in full force? Because I don't know how many more rounds of that chemo I can do before this one was. It almost broke me. It was that tough, right? So I'm like, I'm a little bit scared of it, but then I have to think, I feel good now.
Yeah.
So I need to concentrate on right now, what I'm doing, who I'm with, whatever it is I can do.
Being nauseated. It's a thing where in the moment it's like time slows down. I can only even imagine. I think we've all had that experience at one point where it's coming out of both ends.
Yes.
And the only thing you can do is just say, okay, well, this moment is this moment, and afterwards, and then of course the brain like hides it. Oh, it wasn't that. You made it. You're good. No, it was horrible.
That is hilarious that you said that, because it's so true. Even now, like talking about going through chemo, I'm like, oh, it's really bad, but I don't remember exactly how bad it was. I just know it was bad.
You can't remember, because if you could, it would be a nightmare and you'd relive it, right?
Right.
And the other thing about you said it'd be the individuals. A number of 14% is a number, but those people are out there doing stuff. Like there are thousands of them walking around. They're living their lives. There's no reason that could not be you, us, whoever.
Absolutely. Yeah. And even if it wasn't, I have today, I have tomorrow, I think I have next week, I probably have next month, right? So let's see what happens, right?
Hey friends, I hope you're enjoying this podcast, and I hope you take a look at one of our sponsors, CBT Nuggets. CBT Nuggets is an IT training online system for professionals and anyone really looking to build IT skills. It's kind of like Netflix for IT people. They've got lots of great stuff, but their core specialties are networking, cloud, and security, and they're putting up 40 hours of new training each week. Their entire trainer team is 100% in-house. They're all active IT professionals with multiple certifications. One of the great things that CBT Nuggets has that a lot of other folks don't have are virtual labs. These are actually on-demand virtual environments that are tailored to the course material that you're taking. And it allows you to actually practice networking configs, do scripts, run queries alongside the course. Best of all, accountability coaching. It's really hard to go and self-learn, but this service is available to all learners with a subscription. They have a coaching team that's integrated with their trainer and their content team, so you can talk to a real person at CBT Nuggets who will help you craft a personalized learning plan, set goals, and they'll check in with you to keep you accountable. And they've got a great 7-day free trial where you're going to get unlimited access to their entire training library. The promo URL is cbtnuggets.com/HanselMinutes. That's cbtnuggets.com/HanselMinutes. Why not quit your job, get on a plane, and then just do the whole like run all over the place and like the literal bucket list. We've all heard the whole bucket list idea. We've seen the movies where someone makes a list of cool stuff.
I think that's super cool. I think if I was a slightly different personality, I would love to do that. It would be incredibly fun, right? Jump on a plane, take all the money that I have, and my wife and I would just spend the rest of our time enjoying as much as we possibly could. So about what was it? 3 weeks ago, there was no way I could even do that. I couldn't get on a plane. I was that bad off. And only like since about last week have I been in a state where I'm like, oh wait, I can get back to work. I can actually do stuff. I can do whatever. I feel almost able again, right? So at my worst, that wasn't a possibility. Right now, that is, right. I could still do that, and it would be fantastic. But I think I'm just wired a little bit differently. My idea is do what makes me happy, do what I love. So if that's what I really wanted to do, 100% I would do that. But crazy as it sounds, what makes me really happy is using my brain and doing fun stuff and figuring things out. And then I'm a sucker. I love it when people are like, oh, that was amazing. You did great. Right. I like kind of live for that. And my wife makes fun of me all the time, but that's like something that those are things that make me happy. So I personally chose to come back to work. Not because we have to, not because of financial reasons, not because that, there's no other choices except work or a catastrophe would happen, but because that's what brings me joy. Again, if I was another type of person, I would pick something else. But I think it's important, especially when you're living underneath a microscope, that you have to do what makes you happy, right? But I think that's good advice to anybody because we don't know, right? We don't know when we're going to die. We don't get to choose when we die. These things kind of just happen to us. I mean, like you said, an ice cream truck could show up and just bam. So I think it's pretty good advice for everybody, whether you're underneath this microscope of I may live next week, I may not, or even if I'm perfectly healthy, I think I'm going to live until I'm old, right? So just life is hard, so we got to do what makes us happy.
It's got to be tough when people have like opinions and like advice, right? The great thing about advice is you don't have to take it, but yes. I didn't mean to imply that you should jump on an airplane. And I also don't know that if this happened to me tomorrow, if I would jump on an airplane. But what I like about what you're describing is you're being intentional. This is going to get done on your terms. You decided I'm going to work because work makes me happy. And the kind of work that you do, you've always been passionate about your work. You've always been amped.
Yeah.
Amped about your work.
Always. I make the joke of like, if I won the lottery and I won $1 bajillion and never had to work again, would I still work? Not for Microsoft, of course, but would I be writing code? Of course I would, because if I don't do anything, eventually I start getting bored. And then I have to find hobbies to do. And eventually the hobby, whatever hobby I'm doing, is going to lead to some type of programming because that's kind of what I know how to do, right? So everything looks to me, the solution is, I better write some code for that to fix it, right? So I couldn't imagine life without coding.
Yeah, I love the problem solving part of it all. Like it's about, I was trying to explain to my wife as a problem solver, but not in the way that I think that you and I are, where like there's a problem and it's going to take 30 hours to solve it. I'm going to write a tool for 29 hours so that I can push a button at the end,
Yep.
And that's my thing. She teases me too. She's pretty much unimpressed with this whole, this thing that we do, you and I.
Yeah. My wife has kind of just resigned herself to the fact that I need my hobbies, or if I don't work my brain, I'm just completely going to go insane and just annoy the living daylights out of her. So she's like, yeah, your weird hobby that involves coding, enjoy, do it. And I'm like, look how cool this is. Little lights will flash, and she's like, yay, great job.
Recently, I want to say 3 or 4 weeks ago, we did Microsoft Build, and we put together a keynote, a developer keynote that was a little weird. We basically did an episode of the Microsoft Office, and you were in that keynote, and people may not know that you were either coming from or going to chemo that day.
Yeah, I was coming from. So I actually had a portable chemo pump that was attached to me, and I was hiding it. That's why I had this big bulky hoodie on, and I was kind of hiding it so people couldn't see it. 'Cause that's just weird to see, right? Or at least I'm self conscious enough that I didn't want people to see that, so I had it all buried underneath my
Yeah.
clothes and
Well,
stuff.
you didn't tell it. No one on set had any idea
Cool.
except me and Isaac, and
Yeah.
it's not our place to say. This is the second time, though, that you've done work with me hiding pumps and stuff. Like you and I are like the pump hidey
We
people,
are.
keeping tubes and stuff hidden. We've done 2 keynotes now
Yes.
with hidden equipment. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's kind of an interesting behind the scenes for people who are watching that you didn't have to come from chemo to do the build keynote. You realize, like,
It was when y'all called me up and said, "Hey, why don't we throw you in a cameo?" Are you kidding? I leaped at that chance. I didn't care how I was feeling like that. I remembered that call you made to me, and it was like in the morning, and it was not a good day, right? I was feeling kind of crappy, but when you told me, like my entire outlook changed, my face changed. It's just like everything. I was like, of course I want to do this. This is going to be so fun. Oh, it was amazing. And again,
your wife wasn't mad.
no, no, no. She wasn't mad. She was
Okay.
just glad that there was like something could spark my mood up, right? And again, I'm not saying that that's the answer for everyone. Do more work. That's crazy, right? In fact, I would recommend probably the opposite to people, which is back away from work because work takes so much from you. But I glean just so much joy from it that it. And plus, working on the keynote, that was so much fun, right? That was like play. It was like a play date we had.
That's
How
what
could
people don't
I?
get. I was trying to explain that to like to my wife and for my family. They're like, "Oh, you must have been really stressed out." It's like, but there's stress and then there's stress.
Exactly, exactly. Like I wanted
Yeah.
to make sure I got my demo down and all that, and I didn't want to stumble over my words or make a giant mistake. But come on, it was so much fun. It was like I get to play make believe. I get to play, hey, I'm an actor, or I'm whatever.
It was so
It was
cool. We were
amazing.
pretending to be actors. There was like an actual director, and he was like yelling cut and action and speed. I don't even know what speed means. I think it's like the spinning of the hard drives or whatever. Like, do we have speed? But yeah, when Isaac Levin, my partner in crime on that, he was the producer and the
Yeah,
one of the writers. He's like, this isn't going to be the same if we don't get Abel to get in. So we're like, all right, we gotta. I feel like fancy. I can say we wrote a part. We wrote a part for Abel.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we had a part in our mind, and Isaac having that idea. I was like, I don't know. I literally was like, Isaac, I think he probably has other things to do. And he's like, no, we have to call him. And it's his. He said he's an adult. He can say no if he wants to.
I can. And if it wasn't what I was going to say dying to do, which is funny turn of phrase these days. If it wasn't what I was dying to do anyway, I would have said no, right? Oh my God, I feel
Yeah,
horrible. I don't, but this
yeah,
was pure joy for me to do. It was so much fun. I get to play make believe for a while. I get to pretend I'm not just sick. I am. When you get diagnosed with something like uncurable cancer, it becomes so overwhelmingly everything about your life revolves around it all of a sudden. And to me, I am so much more than just a cancer patient. Right? I am so much more than that. And I want to be able to live that life and not just Abel the cancer guy. Right. So having the opportunity to play in your keynote, that was amazing. Although you did bring up a funny point. Both times now that I've been through chemo, I've done a keynote with you. So it just might be our thing.
yeah. I don't. The first one, it was just bad
Yeah.
timing. It wasn't like orchestrated or anything. And I knew that you were going through some challenges, but I didn't try to schedule it on your
Right,
chemo day.
right,
I'm
right,
sorry. I didn't mean to like
right.
just it's fine, Abel. Just take the bus from chemo, go directly to the set, give your demo, and then you can go take a nap after. Did not mean to do that. Just how the scheduling worked out.
Yep, yep. It worked out well too. I think that was my first keynote with you. So it was.
No, we did Ignite 2018 on stage.
So it was my second. Then
Remember?
why was I so nervous? I was freaking
I
out
don't
about that.
know.
I was like scared. I was like, oh, I can't mess up. Ah. Whereas this time around, I wasn't scared at all. I was just like, this is gonna be awesome.
Yeah. I'm always nervous about those things. I actually was showing. I gave a little 5-minute thing at an all hands and internal all hands
Yeah,
yesterday, and I got my little heart rate thing
yeah.
here, and it's like 90 right now, which is still not awesome. My heart rate is too high, And then it's like, okay, and you're going to start in 10 seconds, Scott. And then I start going, and it's like, oh my, what is happening? And I look at my heart rate. It's like 125,
Wow.
like running up,
Yeah.
running uphill on the treadmill. Like, what is going on? Oh, that's just your body preparing you to give a talk and freak out. And everyone's like, do you always freak out? And I was like, the watch says that I do. Do you always freak out before we talk, or do you have a Zen-like calm?
I do not have a Zen-like calm. I absolutely go completely insane, and I'm super in my head too. But it's probably also one of my favorite moments. You're backstage, and usually there's someone that's going to introduce me, whether it's like you or Donovan or Scott or someone's going to be like, oh, and demoing XYZ, and then I show up, right?
Voice of God.
Yeah, so I'm like backstage in the wing, and you can just see that little sliver of the stage.
Yeah, between the two.
It's like dark here and then light over there, and then you've got the handler like ready to push you out when it's time, and your heart's just going, and I'm like, you start to shake. Oh, that's like my favorite moment. Like I'm panicking, but I also, in a very perverse way, really enjoy that. And then as soon as they push me onto stage, all of a sudden it's like, I can't even describe. I've been a performer all my life. I love being on stage, right? That's like my happy place. All of a sudden I'm like, all eyes are on me. Yeah, this is awesome. And then once you get going, it's fine, right? But that first sentence, I'm always afraid that I'm going to get up there, open my mouth, and nothing's going to come out. And I'm just going to be like, uh-oh. I can't remember a single line. Now what am I going to do? Right. Luckily, that hasn't happened yet. But do I get scared? Absolutely, 100%. It does get better, though. I think I get the same amount of scared that when I first started doing public speaking, but I know how to handle that so much better. Right. Even with the elevated heart rate, even with like that panicky feeling, I still have control over my voice. I still have control over my gestures. So at least I'm not doing this, right? I'm not just physically shaking where people can see it. I might shake a little bit, but most people can't see that.
Yeah. For me, it's not the going out of the two little slits and like out, it's the running back afterwards. So for me, it's the exact opposite. Yeah. It's like the best feeling is I did it. And then I have to put my head between my legs and I just kind of like sit there and it's just like, so, after having done this for 20 plus years, now it's my heart rate comes down faster. That's the only thing I've developed is that like, I get over it quickly.
Yeah.
It's like, I guess if you're a marathon person or whatever, when you start, you collapse at the end of the finish line.
Yeah.
And now you just take a knee.
So, yeah. But it never really goes away, right? I mean, no. I think that's kind of what gives us our edge too. That feeling of, I'm almost out of control. I better practice more so I don't mess up, right? That kind of that I don't know whether it's imposter syndrome or that nervousness that I have. It really drives me to do even better. So in case people didn't realize, I'm kind of Asian, like super Asian-y. And the way that imagine that the way that we did stuff, like the way that my parents taught me to do stuff was by rote. You keep on doing stuff until you got good at it. So I was a musician. I played the violin forever, again, because I'm super Asian. And the thing with my mom was I started when I was like 4 or something ridiculous like that. And even then, my mom was like, you have to play it 3 times in a row perfectly with no mistakes. And if you make a mistake, go back and keep on doing it until it's absolutely perfect. And you have to do it 3 times in a row. Right? And then you can move on. So that's kind of my background of how to get things good. So when I feel nervous, when I feel scared, when I feel that imposter syndrome kick in, which is every single time I open my mouth, it forces me to do more rote repetition until I feel like I got this no matter what. Someone could like poke my eye out with a fork and I'd still be able to go on with my talk because I've just done it so many times. It's automatic now. And then I kind of feel a little bit of safety when I get to that point. But it's still a little scary. You still get that nervous feeling.
We're doing. I think I've told you before that my family and I have been doing Taekwondo now for like 3 or 4 years, and it's a Korean martial art, and we do these hyungs, right? One culture calls them katas, and it's rote. So now we're coming up on our black belts, and we're doing our hyungs, and we got like a bunch of hyungs to memorize, and then the boss, the grandmaster, says, "Now we're doing a mirror image."
What?
These things that you've been doing for the last 4 years, do them backwards, and mirror image. So all the last, 1,000 times you've done that, Young, hang a right this time.
Oh my goodness. Talk about.
And he says, if you know it, then you just like flip them. You know what I mean? It's like, just do the demo in reverse, as Grace Kelly says, right backwards and in heels.
What could possibly go wrong?
But if you knew it. So now I'm in that part of the learning process, but you're right. You get it right if it becomes muscle memory.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we each have our processes and on how we do things. So just because this is how I do things, I don't want your listeners to be like, oh, this is how you're supposed to do things. No, this is just my way of doing things. These are things that make me happy. But we each kind of have to find our path and our process to how we do our work, how we live our life. As
we get towards the end here, what I'm hearing you say is decide. Don't just accept the defaults, whatever you're doing.
Never.
Yeah. It's not about, because people see weeks go by and you're like, where did that week go? It may have been that you accepted that week's defaults, and that's why that week shot by so fast.
Never accept the defaults. We can always make it better. We can always make it, again, depends on what we like, right? So my daughter, she actually works at Microsoft now, so I'm super proud.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, she's not nearly as driven as I am, where like, if I could spend every waking moment doing some type of work-related stuff, that I'm kind of okay with that, right? Just sitting in front of my computer all day long, every day. And she likes to actually have a life and do things and have a work-life balance. And she does,
good parenting,
which I think is fantastic, right? It's awesome. I'm like, I almost kind of wish I could live my life that way, where it didn't just revolve around me writing code or me doing whatever. But I see that in her. It makes her happy, and that's what she does. And so that's fantastic, right? So we each have. Yeah, we just got to kind of have to figure out the way. Don't accept the defaults. Figure out what makes you happy and go and do that.
Absolutely. Well, I am going to say this. You have this spot 52 weeks from now, and 52 weeks from now, and 52 weeks from now. I've been doing this show for 15 years. Yeah. So you are now the center of June spot for the next 15, 20 years, okay? So you meet me in a year and we'll do this again.
Absolutely. I will be there.
All right, fantastic. We've been chatting with Abel Wang, and I hope that you all get busy living as he is. And this has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.